Alright, I'm going to demonstrate using wrap stitches and dropping them in order to get open work into your knitwork. And the technique, you can wrap either twice or 3 times instead of just putting your yarn around the needle one time as though you would for just a regular knit stitch. You wrap it twice or 3 times. This particular pattern uses 3 times. And you can do this. I'm using a sock weight yarn, fingering weight, and a size 9 needle, but you can do it any gauge, any type of yarn. It's particularly nice with a ribbon type yarn because then you get a really nice luxurious look. And the technique comes when you are dropping the stitches, which is kind of intimidating, but I'll show you how to do that. I really strongly suggest that you use a straight needle, because when you're wrapping these stitches on here, if you use a circular needle, the stitches fall down onto the cable and they get kind of all tangled, and so then when you're bringing them back up to work them, you spend a lot of time trying to straighten them out, so it just goes faster if you have straight needles. And it's always easier if they have kind of a nice long slim point. These are just some I grabbed out of my granddaughter's knitting bags. Alright, now we have all the stitches on the needle, and you can see that it looks like there's a lot of stitches on there for sure. Now we're going to do the drop part, which is very scary, but there's a fairly simple technique involved here. You're going to look for the stitch that has the longest leg on it and is connected to the row beneath it. So you stick your needle into that stitch and just do an ordinary 1 wrap knit stitch. Then you can see we have these other 2 that are just wrapped around the needle, so just drop those off. And if you'll look, you'll see that this has a little bar across the bottom of that leg. It has a little collar on it, and that's the stitch you're looking for that you're going to knit into. And then just gently drop those stitches off. And it looks pretty messy and kind of nasty right now, but it will all straighten out in the end. But that's the technique. Just drop those stitches right off and it will be okay. This is a really good way to get a lot of mileage out of a particularly like a luxurious or very pricey yarn. You can see where you get a lot of length without using a whole lot of yarn. So it's a kind of a nice technique for stretching some very special yarn if you want to display it quite nicely. And you see where the slimmer point is kind of handy for picking up that stitch, getting in there and scooping that up. Okay, now we've dropped the stitches off, and I'm going to pull them so you can see what happens when we open them up. And it's a good idea to do this after every drop stitch row so that you can kind of snug the stitches onto your needle and you don't get confused about what's dropped and what isn't. But you can see that that opens up into just a really nice airy kind of a look. And you'll want to stabilize this with a row of knitting. Just knit every stitch, and then after that row you can do another drop stitch row if you want to, but you do have to anchor it with a row of knitting. And you can see here we have kind of like a garter ridge between dropped areas, and that stabilizes it. So that's really all you need to know about drop stitches. It's pretty simple.